Before you land in Vietnam, these are my do's and don'ts. If you've ever been stressed out about a few things or think you've forgotten to Google that one last thing before your plane touches down, this is the video that's going to answer all of those questions. All of the things you do need to do before you land in Vietnam and all of the things you do not need to do. Let's get started. So before you land in Vietnam, you absolutely have to have your visa in place. For most people, this takes about 72 hours to process via a website. It's the official government site. Only use that one. Do follow the link below. You need this. They're not joking around. Do not try and get the visa on landing. It is not worth it. A lot of the time, you literally can't get on your plane and won't even get your trip off the ground. Costs $20 to $50 about that. You're allowed to stay in country for 90 days. And I've heard absolute horror stories from friends, including an old work buddy, who got trapped in Seoul, Korea and refused entry onto the follow-along plane to Vietnam because his visa literally fell out of his pocket in the airport, okay? He got lucky and found it. They let him on another plane 24 hours later. Do sign up for an eSIM package before you land in Vietnam. You can use the Airalo link I've provided below, and you can buy a regional coverage for all of Southeast Asia. Do not use the kiosks in any of the airports in Vietnam. They're scammy, overpriced, and often provide bad coverage. They use a recycled SIM card in some cases. It's not worth it. Once you land in Vietnam, do sign up for one of the 3 major service providers. There's Mobifone, Viettel, and Vinaphone. So what I do is on my cell phone, I have a Mobifone SIM card. Do bring your passport into the store. It is required to get a SIM card. Once I have my phone hooked up to Mobifone, I use this, which is a personal wireless hotspot or a small sort of travel modem. I'll link one of these or a similar product below you can buy from Amazon to support the channel. This has a Viettel SIM card in it. So I have 2 SIM cards, both registered in store with national providers, and I use my passport to get them. Cheap data coverage in the country. You don't have to worry about that. Neither of these cost more than a few bucks a month, and they're both ideal to use because do not expect 5G service in Vietnam. It is not realistic. In the cities, you get 4G. In the rural areas, you get 3G or nothing at all. So to have a phone, a wireless hotspot modem, and an eSIM all at once, you're gonna get the greatest level of protection, and you're not going to be paying very much for data, so it's not a big concern. You're going to want some cash and a working debit card before you land in Vietnam. Do not bring a wad of cash in your local currency to this country. I do not recommend that. My preference here is to be as cashless as possible. Do try and have at least 2 international debit cards with you, one from your personal home bank, and I also recommend getting one from the Wise app. I'll link my referral code below. Do use it to support the channel. They use a great transaction or fee-free way, and you can exchange currencies between Vietnamese, British, Canadian, US, Euro, whatever, online and not have to pay a cent. Comes recommended by some of my friends as well as some of my subscribers. That said, do check with your personal bank to see if you can use their app for QR code payments. This is a great way to go cashless, and everyone from fruit sellers and markets to bars, restaurants, and hotels will let you scan their QR code to pay. If possible, do buy a few $100s or more worth of Vietnam dong at your local bank just to be safe and have it before you land in Vietnam. Do use the ATMs of respected banks here like Vietcom, Agribank, or Techcom Bank. There's also foreign providers like Korean Sacom Bank or HSBC. They will charge you a fee, but so will your home bank. So do not leave and do not come to Vietnam without calling your bank and checking first to see which kind of fees you're being charged by them to use ATMs abroad, and to make sure they know that you're traveling and they don't shut off your card. That said, do not pay for everything in Vietnam with a debit card because there are card reader scams here, which are quite frequent. Twice I've been victim to card reader scams. One time it literally almost ruined Christmas. Even though I was reimbursed the cash, it was 8 weeks later. And I'm talking about $8,000 US. If you're gonna use your debit card, it's at a respected business you can trust. Next thing, you're gonna wanna get to your hotel or your homestay or Airbnb, whatever lodging you book, so you're gonna need some kind of transportation. Sorry about the honks, we're literally here at the Grab Ride app pickup in the airport in Da Nang International Terminal 2. You see, and I can put it here, there are scammers here. So there are guys who will flash you a phone with the Grab app, Don't trust them unless you've pre-booked your ride or your flight. It's like the most common scam you get here, and unfortunately there's still quite a few scams at the airport. The best form of transportation depends on which international airport you landed at. Here in Da Nang, Ho Chi Minh City, or Hanoi. Here in Da Nang, do use this Grab pickup location. It's very trustworthy as long as you've used the app and had it set up before you land. That means connecting your Wise account or another debit account to the Grab app and making sure you have internet in the airport. That's all set up. I do recommend taking a Grab car to your lodging in Da Nang City or further on to Hoi An. I don't suggest taking a motorbike. The price is not different enough that it matters. It's maybe $1 because the city is so close to the airport. And as far as going on Hoi An, especially at night or in bad weather, the highway's not really safe to be on the back of a bike. It's not worth it to save yourself a few bucks. But don't get lost finding this spot. I'll put the thing, but you basically have to go straight out, hang a left. We'll flash a little graphic or a map above it. So in Da Nang, take a Grab. In Ho Chi Minh City at Tan Son Nhat Airport, probably my least favorite place on planet Earth, where I've been over 50 times in the last 5 years, definitely do not take the Grab app. It is a pain in the ass to get to either the car or bike pickup location. So what do you do there? You take a taxi from the licensed taxi stand. There's 2 companies you can trust in Vietnam, Vinasun and My Linh. Do not take Vinasun with an O, it's S-U-N, like the sun in the sky. I'll show you images of both cars and their logos. These companies are reputable. That said, do talk to your driver about your final destination. Do ask them an approximate rate or how much it should cost to get there, and do insist they turn on and leave your meter running. Taxi scams are frequent here, and you do not want to be taken advantage of, even if it's just for $1 or $2. You also don't literally want to be taken for a ride and be driving around in chaotic rush hour traffic, running up a metered bill for no reason. Do download a Google map of whatever city you're landing in. If you're in Hanoi, there's 2 options I do recommend. So do book a ride in advance with your hotel, your Airbnb, or your homestay if possible, because that airport is about 20 or 30 kilometers from the city. It's a long ride. You probably don't want to take a metered taxi. You don't want to take a Grab either. So do pre-arrange a ride in Hanoi if at all possible, especially if it's with a place from Booking or Agoda or something like that, because you can then leave a review for the person who gave you the ride. If you're traveling on the cheap in Hanoi, there's also a bus, which is reliable. It's the number 86 bus. I'll show you a picture of it now, as well as a map for how to find it. I've taken it once before a few years ago, but it was fine. It got me to the city center, and then from the city center, I hopped on a Grab bike. For those of you who are gonna ignore me and get a motorbike anyways, let's talk about that. But let's do it over in bike parking where I park. So let's talk about the roads and getting around here. The thing about this is that it's not scary, it's dangerous. If you do rent a bike like this, it's gonna cost you about $4 to $6 a day, 100 to 150K, depending on which province or city you're in, $1 million to $1.5 million a month. The issue here is that transportation, roads, and basically every way of getting around is totally chaotic, lawless, and no one has any kind of driver safety education. Do take cars or buses or the biggest and safest vehicle possible, especially in cities, as the vast majority of traffic accidents here involve motorcycles like these, little sort of 125 or 150cc bikes, and everyone scoots everywhere on them. In my 5 years here, I've literally seen multiple fatalities. I've sworn off this kind of bikes, got back on them, yada yada. People here don't have a choice because there's no good public transit. You probably do have a choice, so do make the right choice for you. Do not drive a motorcycle unless you are planning a rural or countryside long-term scenic drive. Somewhere you can climatize to the bike, get safe, be comfortable driving this thing, and you're not going to be surrounded by chaotic rush hour traffic in a city with more than 10 million people, and they're driving the wrong direction on the sidewalk. It happens. Do not use this crappy, dinky $5 helmet the rental place gives you. You do need to go out and splurge and buy yourself a real helmet. It's going to cost $40 or $50. It's probably going to save your life. Do it. It's worth it. Do's and don'ts of food, drink, and culture that you need to know before you land in Vietnam. And by the way, if you've watched this far, do subscribe to the channel. I'm Evan, eh? So your next problem is going to be, where will you stay? You can stay here at the beach in Da Nang or up in the mountains of Mai Cho or Sapa. It is a beautiful country. Do explore. Do see the south, the north, and the central regions. So I've camped in tents on like tiny private islands in the middle of Lan Ha Bay and Ha Long Bay. I've also stayed in really nice 5-star hotels in Old Quarter in Hanoi. But do book ahead using a site like booking.com or Agoda. Do not book directly through your accommodation or Facebook. This is a classic way to get scammed. You're just saving them $1 on a booking fee, but you're taking away your own insurance. You aren't gonna be able to cancel it, you aren't gonna be able to get a refund, you're gonna have no recourse to leave a public review. These places do check their reviews. It's a classic way to get scammed, and it's happened to my parents here. When should you travel to Vietnam? You're gonna wanna look at the regional and monthly weather reports for different places. There's 3 or 4 different microclimates in this country, and it can be 30 or 40 degrees hot in Ho Chi Minh, and literally in cold, rainy typhoon season, or even snowing in Lao Cai and Sapa in the north. So do check a monthly weather report depending on where you're going. Do not travel during Mid-Autumn Festival or Lunar New Year's, which is called Tet here. The airports, trains, buses, everything are an absolute nightmare. Do avoid national holidays. Unlike some of its neighbors, Vietnam does not have incredible English. So do make sure you have Google Translate or another app on your phone. The locals will be happy to use it with you. They're used to it. Do expect to need a translator, especially outside of the cities. Do bring along a phrase book or a cheat sheet for a few things. Locals will appreciate it if you know how to say Xin Chao or Kamun or just basic stuff like that. Wi-Fi, Wai Chai. I just did that wrong. It was a joke, I promise. Regional accents here have a huge variance. Hanoians can move to the south to Saigon and literally not be understood because of their accents. Do not spend a week trying to learn Ting Viet on YouTube and expect the locals to understand you. This is another big difference here. The variety between rural and urban is humongous. The cities are developed, are fast growing, are massive. They have okay infrastructure. It's not great, especially compared to some of their neighbors like Thailand or Singapore. But do know what kind of place you're going to before you land in Vietnam. A trip to Nha Trang or Da Nang along the central coast is going to be incredibly different than a motorbike tour, say, through the Ha Giang Loop or Phu Luong in northern Vietnam, or a boat trip down to Can Tho through the Mekong and the floating markets. Do know what you're getting yourself into. If you do stay in the cities, do eat the local street food. It's safe. Do eat the food that is cooked. Do not touch the uncooked stuff. That includes salads, greens, or herbs on top. If you're afraid of it, just avoid it. Do yourself a favor. Last tip, bring hand sanitizer. The most likely way to get sick when you're traveling is by having dirty hands or touching germs. Oh, do take the time to bargain. When I sat down, I was supposed to pay $80K for this. I told Grandma I'd be here for 5 minutes and I was just filming. The price dropped to $40K. Do you think it's silly to bargain over a few bucks? Maybe. But do you want to get ripped off? Now let's go get something to eat. For most people, before you land in Vietnam, you've heard of pho or banh mi. But the reality is those dishes are regional. Do have the pho in Hanoi. Do have a banh mi in Saigon. But do not order the same 2 dishes the entire time you're in the country. Do a bit of research, Google the local specialty, and try whatever the locals are eating wherever you are. Also, do not expect extremely high quality and incredible food when you're in the middle of nowhere. In rural Vietnam, a lot of places are not well supplied, so just do accept what you can get. The same goes for vegans and vegetarians. Do look up chai, C-H-A-Y, but do not expect what you're used to at home. They just don't have that quality here. And do expect to pay 5 or 10 times as much for international food or Western food than you do for local Vietnamese food. Do not be afraid to try the local food. If you're still worried, you're concerned, do the hand wash and use your eyes and your nose and check. Just use your senses. Does a place look clean? Does it smell delicious? Is it packed with local peoples eating something that looks yummy? It's probably the spot. Do be prepared to be absolutely wowed by some incredible food. This is a Hanoian specialty known as a bún đảo Mam Tom, and I can't wait to dig into it. It's incredible. There's deep fried tofu, there's cube noodles, there's rolled pork head, there's fish cake, there's spring roll, there's veggies, there's an incredible fermented fish sauce. Now, let's talk about drinks, because you're gonna be thirsty if you polish off something like this. The beer here is cheap and plentiful. There are multiple local brands like LaRue, Ba Ba Ba, aka 333, as well as Bia Hanoi and Bia Saigon, which both offer their local brands. Here in the central region, it's Huda, named for Hue and Da Nang, where it's made. So if you're in Hanoi, do try the Bia Toi, which is like fresh draft beer, and you can find for as cheap as 25 cents, 50 cents a glass. If you're in the hot south, do like the locals. Put some ice in your glass. It's a bia with da, aka rocks. And do not miss out on Vietnamese coffee culture. It is spectacular and amazing. This country exports the second most coffee in the world next to Brazil, and per square mile, per capita, it's gotta be the best place for coffee on planet Earth. So do make sure you try some local Viet coffees. Last but not least, before I tell you about some of my can't miss experiences in my 5 years in Vietnam and the places I think you absolutely have to go, do consider supporting the channel and joining a channel membership so I can make more of these videos and answer your comments and questions. Okay, now the best part of all, the absolute can't miss experiences here in Vietnam. Do a bike ride through Hoi An Old Town. Do splurge on a cruise in Ha Long Bay. Do relax in the serene rice terraces of Phu Luong in the north. Do stroll around Hon Kiem and Tay Ho, the two beautiful lakes in Hanoi. Do eat all the banh mi's you can fit in your belly when you're in Saigon. Do a road trip along the gorgeous central coast from Da Nang to Hue to Nha Trang or Quy Nhon. Get on a bike and drive the Ha Giang Loop. Do check out Lao Cai and the northern provinces. See Sapa, hike up a mountain. Do book a coffee tour in Dalat and check out the Phu Nha Caves. They're incredible, spectacular, once-in-a-lifetime bucket list opportunities, and you do not want to miss out on any of the incredible things you can do in this beautiful country. Thanks so much, Brian from Manchester, for this awesome kit. I appreciate it. Now do yourself a favor, folks, and watch this next video on the cost of living in Vietnam, specifically my family in Da Nang and how much we spend in a month.